Welcome back to the show, everybody. I'm your host, Dr. David Hooper, and this is another episode of the Unstoppable Introvert Project. And I am so excited to be speaking to you today. And it's just me. It is just David here with you. And I'm so excited to be back just having a chat with you guys. And it's been a ride, and I'm excited to give you an update. But yeah, solo episode, and it's been a whirlwind past couple of weeks, and I'm going to get into everything that I've been up to today. But the topic is all about overwhelm, and the reason I've chosen to do a topic focusing on overwhelm is quite simply because since starting this podcast, I have been overwhelmed. I've been loving the process and really thriving on building this new introverted community that is amazing. And I've had so many people reach out, and it's been, an incredible journey. But it is still something that takes a lot of work for me to do. And quite honestly, I started this podcast on the 29th. Well, the trailer came out the week before, so like the 22nd of January 2024. And since then, we have published 25 episodes. I've interviewed 14 guests. I've had guests from multiple different countries. I've had 3 or 4 from the different parts of the US, one from Canada, one from Denmark, different parts of England, and it has been incredible, but very overwhelming at times as well. And because of that overwhelm, Laura and I booked a trip away, and it was amazing, and I'll tell you a little bit about that as well. But for now, we're going to be thinking about overwhelm. And the main thing I wanted to start off by saying was that overwhelm doesn't necessarily go away, and the different periods in your life, you are going to feel overwhelmed. And it's not one of those things where you can just fix it and it's done forever, or at least I haven't found that. I find that overwhelm rears its ugly head when I am procrastinating, or when I am fearful of taking action, or in new situations. And it's all about being able to deal with that overwhelm. And that's what we're going to go through today in terms of how I deal with it. And hopefully this will help you as well. In terms of a life update then, it's been a crazy couple of weeks. So the last time I had an individual podcast with you, Laura and I were about to do our marathon. And to start off with that, what an amazing day that was. If you haven't been on my social media, you might not know that Laura absolutely smashed it. She killed the marathon. She ticked that off her bucket list, and she can now say she went from 0 miles a week to running a full marathon fairly comfortably in 11 weeks. And it's insane. It's insane. And again, I just want to take the time to say thank you to everybody who reached out and wished us well, wished Laura well. She really appreciated it. And the day was awesome. And although Laura is going to be on a guest episode in a few weeks' time, the update is that we went down the night before. It was in Leeds, which is fairly north in England, and it was on the canal between Liverpool and Leeds. And we had to run along the canal, basically. And we got there the night before. We got checked into the hotel, and we went for an evening meal. We went to just a little restaurant and had some pasta and had a chilled night. We watched Men in Black 3 when we got back to the hotel. We foam rolled, we stretched, we hydrated. We did prepare really well because Laura was pretty worried about her legs, which is absolutely understandable considering the amount of miles that she has suddenly started to do. And just as a bit of a disclaimer, I would never recommend anyone going from 0 miles a week to a marathon in such a short space of time. Laura just wanted to see what her limits were, I guess, and how far she could push herself and push her body. And the answer is she could go further than a marathon, which is amazing. So yeah, little disclaimer there. And then on the day, it was an 8:30 start. So we got up around 6 and we choked down some jam on toast. Never easy to hammer a pre-race meal, but we managed to do it, and we got ourselves stretched and foam rolled again in the morning. And then we got ourselves over and parked at the race, got settled, made sure we knew what was going on, and then off we went. 8:30 in the morning, Laura's first ever marathon, and it was great. We were the first half marathon was probably 2 minutes per mile quicker than what she's been doing in her training runs, which was awesome. And it was quite a flat course, which was great as well, great for the PBs. So she really was able to go out pretty strong. And, you know, we had some family supporting us down there, which was great. They saw us at the halfway mark and gave us some drinks and sweets and sandwiches and that sort of thing. And it was a warm day as well, which is really surprising in Leeds or in the north. And that caught us by surprise a little bit. We have only ever trained in the piss and rain and the wind and the cold. So to actually have a hot day was a different challenge. We had to hydrate a little bit differently and just keep an eye on that type of thing. And we were able to carry on until about mile 18 or 19. And then that's when Laura hit the wall and it started to get a little bit more challenging. But that's when the race really starts. I think in a marathon, the race starts at mile 18 is the phrase. So to get to that point comfortably and then have to dig in was an amazing achievement. And then off she went, she carried on, and we used some different strategies. So for those people who are thinking, I could never just run a full marathon, you don't need to. We use strategies like picking a point 100 yards away, running to it, then walking for 50 yards and just repeating that for a few miles. We also did strategies that were throughout the race, which included running for 25 minutes and walking for 5, running for 15 minutes, walking for 5. And we just modified that as we went. And what that meant was Laura was able to recharge, to take on fluid, to take on food, to stay energized. And we were able to bring that marathon home, which was absolutely probably one of the best days we have had. And it was such an amazing thing. You know, Laura had so many self-doubts around completing that. She was worried and anxious about it, but she stepped up to the plate and absolutely delivered. So major shout out to you, Mrs. Hoops. You are unstoppable. And I'm excited to see what's next for her. She's currently recovering from the marathon, as you would be. And her goals are changing slightly, but I'm sure that she will do another marathon because she absolutely crushed that marathon. So that's the major update. And the next thing I wanted to talk about was actually getting into what's been going on the podcast. So yeah, a little bit different podcast for me today. Although we are going to touch on some topics, I wanted just to get you guys ready for what is coming. So I've been working so hard to get some amazing people to come on this podcast. And to be honest, there hasn't been a shortage of interest. There has been some really exciting people who want to come on. And I've already interviewed 14 people in the space of about 3 or 4 weeks, which is a lot. And, you know, working that outside of full-time work and planning to start a business and managing the podcast and trying to build a following on social media and all these different things. It's overwhelming, as I'm going to get to. But just know that from now on, you're going to get one guest a week and one dose of me a week. And hopefully that's a really nice balance for you. And that'll hopefully take us to about 40 guests this year, which is just insane. I was going to do 2 guests a week and just scrap my own podcasty bit and just have guests. But I really love talking about this stuff and doing some coaching. And yeah, I wanted to contain that. And it's a lot of work organizing guests and preparing everything for them. And I want to make sure I can give my guests an incredible service. And although they don't get paid to come on, they do get lots of content, and I'm really proud of what I'm able to provide them. So it's all about managing my own time and giving you guys, the listeners, who are the most important people in all of this, the best offer that I can. And from my perspective, that is 1 guest a week who's an expert in helping you become unstoppable. And also me, I'm not going to call myself an expert, but I've got some experience in becoming unstoppable. But anyway, back to today, back to dealing with overwhelm. So like I said, I had all of these things going on, and this was start of March. So what Laura and I did, we'd already booked a week away in Wales. We'd never been to Wales before, but Laura had finished an exam, done the marathon. I'd been grafting, building up this podcast and other stuff. We thought we're going to have a week away, which was amazing. And that's the first thing about overwhelm, is firstly understanding what it is, but then really trying to create some space for yourself to understand what's going on. So if you didn't know, overwhelm's a state of being mentally or emotionally when you are inundated by tasks or responsibilities or different stimuli that lead to you feeling stressed or anxious or almost helpless. And I was feeling a little bit like that, so overwhelmed by too many tasks at once, having setbacks in terms of achieving the things I'd set out and making sure that I was, able to continue to achieve them. And that really led me to feeling those feelings of stress and, irritability, fatigue, headaches. And, I'm going to touch on something else I've just changed in the last 3 weeks as well. But I knew that I needed a break. And this all came to a head when I had an amazing conversation with a friend of mine, James Hutchinson, who's going to be a guest in a few weeks' time. Absolutely incredible guy. And I was talking to him and I was saying, I'm feeling overwhelmed and stressed and anxious. And he said that he had similar feelings previously and he gave up caffeine and that helped him. And I came away from that and I thought, you know what, I'm going to do that as well. So I am 3.5 weeks clean of caffeine. I've been on the decaf and I've been having 1 or 2 decaf coffees a day. No caffeine. I quit cold turkey and I do feel a lot better. And I've started to make some amazing progress with the podcast and the business I'm going to start as well. And that was part of the action I took in dealing with my overwhelm and my anxiety and all these different things. So that was one piece of action I took. I wouldn't suggest quitting cold turkey because it leads to incredible headaches and I am still kind of overcoming them. But I know that in the long run, this is going to really help me. But I digress. I've gone off on a tangent. Let me bring it back. So we went to Wales. What an incredible place that is. We'd never been to Wales before. It's a little bit like where I live. So I live in Newcastle upon Tyne or Northumberland, where there's lots of grass, lots of hills to climb, lots of country walks to do, rainforests to look through, that sort of thing. And Wales is very similar to that. Little bit more rural, but it was right up my street, right up Laura's street, right up Luna's street, and we had an amazing time there. And we did a few different things to deal with my overwhelm. The first thing was we had conversations. Laura is an amazing sounding board. So being able to talk to her about how I was feeling was so helpful, cleared my head. And she is able to ask me questions that quite often allow me to lead me back to my own answers. So yeah, I can't shout loudly enough about Laura's role in all of this. But if you're struggling to do that, find someone to have a conversation with. A problem shared is a problem halved, which is a great quote. And I fully believe that. Now, you're not looking to dump on somebody. That's not what we're doing here. You're looking to reach a solution to the challenge that you're facing. And having a conversation quite often leads to that. So that would be one thing to certainly consider if you're feeling stressed, overwhelmed, anxious. Talk it out. What's going on? The second thing we did was build into our week different activities. So on Sundays, we're more chilled than others. On other days, we were climbing mountains or visiting places and having pub lunches, that sort of thing, and really being present. So outside of those conversations where we were thinking about what was going on for us and our future and my challenges, we were trying to be as present as possible. That meant going for country walks and listening out for the bar sheeps and really focusing our attention on Luna, who didn't love that, by the way. She still hasn't recovered from that walk. She's just lying down behind me and she is still pretty tired. And I'll tell you a little story about that in a second. But being able to be present means we aren't worried about the future and we're not regretting what we've done in the past. We are in the present and we are focused on there, here, and now. So we did some country walks, but the big thing that we have done and that was on my bucket list was we climbed Pen Y Fan. Now, for those who don't know what that mountain is, it is the mountain used in the SAS recruit training. And it's a mountain I've read about on multiple occasions. Basically, during their training, the SAS recruits run up the mountain one side to the other side and then back again. So, it's a really challenging day or however long they do it for them. And I'm big into military history and, reading about training that the military do and the recruit processes and all these different things. In a different life, I think I could have gone down that route after stopping playing elite sport. I really considered that route and I was desperate to finally go and see this mountain. Now, we didn't know how high it was. We didn't do that much research and we got there and it was pretty high. And to be honest, the plan was to walk up halfway and then come back down. But we managed to summit it. And it was one of the best days, again, that Laura and I have had. Such an amazing day. And because it was such a place I had been desperate to go to, it just was superb. The weather was kind and it was, a really great day. And there's two things I want to talk about here. The first one is poor Luna. So Luna is one of the laziest German shepherds that you would ever meet. She loves, or maybe she's just an introvert, I'm not too sure. She loves being in the house and playing with her toys and chasing them and doing that sort of thing. She doesn't love long walks. She doesn't like short walks, actually. But we managed to get Luna halfway up this hill, and then she starts to sit down and lie down. And I was thinking, I'm not going to pick this dog up and carry it to the top of this mountain. But anyway, we managed to keep going. We kept having little breaks and kept moving Luna forward. And eventually we got to the summit. But another thing I want to talk about is the process of climbing a mountain. And it's a little bit cheesy and it's a little bit cliche. But the truth in achieving anything is just taking small steps and just putting one foot in front of the other without stopping. You can rest, you can pause, you can rehydrate, you can eat something, but then you carry on taking that step forward. And that was something I was thinking about on the journey up Pen Y Fan. And every time there was a new peak that we'd summited and we thought, oh, we must be near the top, but actually it's another 100 yards away. And you think, oh, I can't keep going. You just have a little reset and then you take that next step. And then before you know it, you've reached the next part. And I think that is a really important learning moment that I had. And I did know this before the mountain climb. And maybe some of you are sitting listening to this who are trying to build big businesses, or trying to get out of the job you're in, or trying to get organized with your finances, or trying to improve your relationships, just know that as long as you don't quit, it won't be a failure. You will be successful. If you're able to just put one foot in front of the other, time and time again, eventually you will reach the top, the summit, the business you want, the relationship you want, whatever it is, the financial freedom you want, the podcast you're trying to build, the business you're trying to start. And that was something that really helped me during my week away. It was on that mountain with my wife, with my dog, on a lovely sunny day in Wales on holiday, climbing a mountain I've been desperate just to see, never mind climb. And to just think, I'm putting one foot in front of the other, making progress up this mountain. Of course, I can keep doing what I'm doing in terms of getting to a place where I can start a business. So I was able to get to that point and think, you know what, I can do these things. And that all came from being present on that mountain. And of course, when we reached the summit, there was that amazing feeling, elation almost of, wow, we've summited an amazing mountain. We had some great pictures right at the summit. I've shared them on social media. Make sure you check those out. And we looked out onto the views, and they were incredible. And something that I think is underrated is the power of being in nature like that. And you just look out, you're calm, you're peaceful, you're present. Suddenly your stresses and fears and overwhelmness starts to fade away. And that was certainly the case with me in that situation. I was able to put my overwhelm in a box and crush it, basically. And I have returned from that holiday revitalized. My podcast has got so many amazing guests. My business is about to launch in a week's time, and I've just got so many things that are going on in a really positive way. And I forget that. I work hard to try and focus on the positives, but it's not easy. The easy thing to do is to focus on the negatives. What am I stressed about? What am I worried about? What's going bad in my life? When actually, if you took a second to focus on your the positives, then you would feel a lot better about yourself. So that was one of the amazing things that happened on that Wales holiday, and we were able to come back both feeling pretty revitalized, ready to go. Laura's got an exam in about 7 or 8 weeks' time, so she's about to lock back in for that, and we're getting after it again in the Hooper household. So it's all good. And another thing that started as well is the holiday diet on. Ideally, you should try and be healthy and in great shape all year round if you can. I think my Christmas overlapped with the start of this year, and I want to be in better shape for a holiday in a few weeks' time. So I am up in the training, tightening the diet, and we are getting after that as well, because I know that I feel better when I'm in great shape. The overwhelm disappears. My confidence increases. I feel like I can take on the world. So whatever state you need to get into, try and get into that state, whether it's physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, whatever it is, it will help you arrive at your best self. And that, to me, is being and feeling unstoppable. So something that I also wanted to highlight was some of the signs I knew that I needed a break. And this was being on edge and anxious a lot. Something that I've struggled with the past really 6 months is panic attacks as well, where to the point where I've been unable to run. So I've been on a few runs around Christmas time, before Christmas, certainly 2023. And I would be running and I couldn't breathe, not from exertion, but from having a panic attack. And I got into this terrible habit as well of just lying on the floor with the dog, having a panic attack and shutting down. And these are bad habits, but you are able to develop better habits and good habits, which hopefully this podcast is helping you with today. So let's get into how I deal with overwhelm to become unstoppable, because it's really important and it will help you in so many different ways. For those of you on the video, you might have noticed that the dog is now locked in with me here, and she just went mental at the postman. So she's in the podcast studio with me, and yeah, if she might chip in again, who knows? But for now, she's asleep, and we are getting into how to actually cope with overwhelm. So the first one is prioritization. And this firstly means, how much have you taken on? For me, I had managed to book in 15 guests in about 3 weeks, and that was far too many. And I've learned from that. And on top of that, I was trying to start a business. I was trying to prepare for a marathon. I was trying to help Laura study. I was trying to run the house and walk the dog. I also had a full-time job. I had to cook food and prepare food, clean the house. So many things. So what was the top of my priority list? And it was then a case of trying to cut out things that were getting in there that were not priority. So things like, and then it was a case on focusing on completing key tasks, making progress in them, moving them along, feeling like I was progressing. And once I prioritized what I wanted to be doing every day, what I wanted my day to look like, how I wanted to be going about my business, things started to feel a lot more manageable. And then within those daily tasks, you can break them down as far as you want, really, so that you're in a position to think, right, yes, I've got a lot going on, but I can manage it, which is the thing that we want to do. And remember, one of our basic needs as a human is we want to feel like we're progressing. So if we've got so many things going on that we aren't progressing with, that is just going to lead to us feeling pretty damn awful. So get to that point where you've prioritized everything in your life, maybe got rid of a few bits and pieces. Maybe it's a case of saying to your friends, you know what, I can't see you for a few weeks, I'm grinding. Or maybe if you're trying to start 4 businesses at once, just pick one and focus on that thing. Maybe if your in-laws or parents are saying, you know, we need to get together for a family meal, say, you know what, we can't. We're trying to progress our lives in these other ways. Check back in with us in a few weeks' time. So that is one of the start of doing that. So once we've got our tasks, you can then do things like time management systems, things like blocking out time in your diaries in a real detailed fashion to make sure that you can fit everything in. Now, I went through this process and I needed about 36 hours in one day to fit everything I wanted to in. So I had to be ruthless. I had to be ruthless and I cut out things that were just not high on the priority list and got everything into my day that I needed to be. For example, I'm a huge runner. I love ultramarathon running. I want to do that again. But now my marathon's ticked off, I haven't been on a long run particularly because my priorities have now shifted to building my podcast out and building a business. That is a higher priority than doing 2 and 3 hour runs every day. Instead, I'm getting HIIT workouts in, I'm lifting weights, I'm doing these different things to make sure that I'm still active, but in different ways. So it's all about tweaking that and managing your time. Then we have boundaries, and this is something that is so important. Establishing clear boundaries between your professional time and your personal time. Now, I am someone who believes it all kind of mushes into one, and work-life integration is the best way to go. However, having things like a cutoff time for being on social media, having a cutoff time for scrolling hours at a time really helps with your mental health. So for me, what that looks like is after about 8 o'clock in the evening, my phone is basically switched off. Another trigger that I've started to do is I've taken my watch off. And to me, for some reason, taking my watch off is the sign that the workday is done. And then I can relax. So figure out what those boundaries are personally. What are your boundaries? When are you working? When are you resting and recharging? But also, like I mentioned briefly, what about those boundaries with other people? When are you seeing people? When aren't you seeing people? Have you got time? Or for now, are you taking a bit of a hiatus? Because people will kill your time. They will take it. They have different priorities to you. They might have nothing going on in their lives. For my example, I've got my podcast, my business, my work, my fitness, my family in terms of my cat and my dog and Laura, keeping the house clean, starting to think about where we're going to live next, starting to talk about our finances in more detail. Other people have nothing. They have their full-time job and they come home. We have different priorities at the moment. So when they're desperate to see us, we need to establish, you can see it's for this period of time at this place, but really we need to be getting back on. Laura's got her exams. Laura's got her work to be doing. So it's all about establishing those clear boundaries. And then another thing, self-care. Know what puts you in the best shape to thrive. Is it getting up early and working out? Something that we literally just bought is an ice bath. So I'm going to be setting that up in the next few days if we have time. And I'm going to be building in ice baths every morning and being one of those guys. So I'm not going to be chucking it in your face as though and saying, look at me, which a lot of people seem to do with ice baths. I don't know why. But my anxiety and panic attacks were so bad. Rob Sanders, who I love, I've mentioned on this podcast so many times, has got an ice bath as a big advocate for ice baths and the use of them. Suggested I get one, so I've got one, and we're going to hopefully see my panic attacks and anxiety really decrease now that I'm seeing so much progress. And that's going to be part of my own self-care routine. But what does it look like for you? Is it exercising more? Is it meditating? Is it sleeping better? Is it spending time outdoors? Is it finding hobbies? Is it taking up a new hobby, singing, dancing, knitting, sewing, whatever it is? Find out what works for you. And then lastly, the support system. Who have you got around you? Is it us, as in this unstoppable introvert network that we are building here right now? Or is it your friends? Is it your family? There is so much support out there. Do not sit in silence. I know it's difficult as an introvert as well to go and reach out for someone and ask for help. I get it. I've been there. But we need to accept and recognize that you're feeling overwhelmed and that you are normal and that this does not reflect your self-worth or your capabilities. You are still incredible. You are still unstoppable. Practice that self-compassion and remind yourself that it's okay to ask for help when you need it. And do please ask for that. I hope this has helped. I really, really do. I hope that it has been useful. I hope that you are still loving the episodes. I am so grateful for your time, and that I really hope that they are helping and that they are moving you towards feeling like you are an unstoppable introvert and that you can go and achieve some incredible things. So if you are struggling with overwhelm, know that this will pass, but it always comes down to the action that you take. No one's coming to save you. You have to save yourself. And what I mean by that is you're the one who needs to take action. You're the one who needs to reprioritize all their tasks. You're the one who needs to reprioritize how you spend your time. You're the one who needs to reach out and speak to somebody. And by doing those things, that action will lead to a decrease in overwhelm, anxiety, stress, the feeling of helplessness, the low self-worth and self-esteem. And what it will lead to is a feeling of positivity, of growth, of achievement, of progression. Because remember, that is what all of us are looking for on this planet, having some progress and feeling so great about it. Remember to subscribe to the podcast. Find us on Spotify and YouTube at Dr. David Hooper on YouTube and the Unstoppable Introvert Project on Spotify. And remember to find me on TikTok, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and Instagram as well at Dr. David Hooper. And get in touch with me. Send me any direct messages. If I can help with anything, you know, I'm always here and I will always do my best to help you guys, because we have got to look after each other. Introverts are amazing and we need to shout it from the rooftops that we are amazing and we are ambitious as anyone, and we can go and create incredible moments for ourselves, and we are not going to let anything hold us back or let anyone get in our way. So I hope you're pumped. I hope you're excited for all my guests. We've got some incredible people lined up who are going to really inspire you to take some major action. But of course, remember, your introversion isn't the thing that will hold you back. It is the thing that will transport you into the best version of yourself. Until next time, stay unstoppable.